Thank you. I think we're all quite aware of the atrocities of ISIS, and even some of them still continue to shock us that Senator Boxer has recounted. But you know, there's over 1,500 groups in Syria. The largest collection of Christians left in the area are actually protected by Assad. While they're not particularly enamored by Assad, they are probably more fearful of ISIS. And I'm not sure how many of the rest of the 1,500, but I think a victory by any rebels on the other side probably worries the Christians more than Assad worries the Christians. And this is not to apologize for Assad, and this is not to say that I have anything positive to say about him. I'm just trying to point out where the Christians are in this. Nearly 2 million Christians live in Syria, and they're being protected by Assad from people like ISIS. We put 600 tons worth of weapons into that civil war, not just us, but Qatar and Saudi Arabia. I think much of it indiscriminate, much of that has empowered ISIS. My question, though, to both members of the panel is there's 1,500 groups. We're all, outraged by ISIS, and justifiably so. How many of the 1,500 groups do you think are also committing atrocities? Zarkis el-Zakam was killed in the city of Malula by Islamic rebels. I'm not sure which group they were from, but he was asked to convert or die, and he said, "I'm a Christian, and I will remain so." And these were his last words. How many of the remaining 1,500 groups that fight in Syria are also of the same sort of religious fanaticism as ISIS?
I'll take it. Thank you for that question, Senator. Everybody in Syria is caught in a vice between the regime and the extremist groups, ISIL chief among them. And everyone is facing their own special version of hell. And for Christians, it is the fear, as you suggested, that the most extremist of these organizations, particularly ISIL or Daesh, will emerge victorious. It is true that many Christians, because of these circumstances, have sought refuge in regime-controlled territory, but the regime cannot protect them forever because the regime is what has created the conditions under which the groups that threaten Christians have been able to emerge and grow stronger. And so the only hope here is to support what is left of the center.
Can you give me an estimate of the 1,500 different groups fighting in the Civil War? Are there other groups that have the same ideology and are committing the same atrocities?
There are other groups, but I can't give you a numerical estimate. As you know, these things change all the time. But I can assure you that there is still, both in terms of the armed and unarmed civilian opposition, there is still a moderate center that is worth supporting and with whom we are working, including to make sure that they are reaching out to these communities and offering reassurance. That is the only hope.
There was a great quote recently in an article from a CIA operative over there who has knowledge of the Middle East, and he said the only thing moderate about the rebels in Syria is their ability to fight. I continue to believe that giving weapons to the moderate rebels in Syria is basically a pit stop for giving them to ISIS. It's a huge mistake, and I think it's very difficult to know friend from foe. Of the 1,500 groups fighting against the Assad regime, there's not one that will recognize Israel. I don't think there are moderates in the region. The only ones who truly may be secular or moderate are not very good fighters, and it's been a mistake to arm them.